Hi, Eric. Good to talk to you again.
It's great to be here again. It's always nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm curious. I have a lot of questions, and let's start about the big exchanges and Vow. So, Vow is why is Vow not listed in the big exchanges right now?
So big exchanges charge big fees, and not only do you have to pay them a lot of money, like in some cases $1 million just to list, but you also have to provide liquidity. You have to play a market maker in their environment, which takes capital. Um, the hope for most tokens is that by listing on a big exchange, you're going to get a big audience. And the reality is a little different. What happens is they get a lot of bots. They get a lot of volume from bots and not actual people buying it or ever learning about the token. And from Vow's perspective, our primary marketplace isn't speculators, right? People who are on exchanges are essentially speculating. I mean, so there's people who are buying, right? They're just buying to hold, which is great. But a lot of the volume on those exchanges is just speculation, and that's just not who we want our token in the hands of, right? Because speculators create waves. They create price waves, and price waves are fine when they're going up, but when they go down, then people are unhappy, and we basically just don't need the big exchanges. Our primary marketplace is the merchants. The merchants are a very different kind of buyer. They're not speculating. They buy and they stake and forget about the stake. They don't care, right? Because what they want is actually the V dollars that get born when they stake, and they use those commercially. And so the Vow can just sit. And so that is really a prescription for a very, very stable and upwardly mobile coin. So we may eventually list on some of the big exchanges, but it's kind of doubtful. I personally have no interest in the space, and I think Bish, agrees to some extent. He understands that Vow needs to be part of many ecosystems, right? But he also has been very judicious about how he budgets money for such things, and clearly the answer has been negative. No, it's not worth doing.
You mentioned that a lot of bots would come into the game when when Vow would be listed. So what exactly happens in these moments? Because I heard some stories about that too, and I think there's a lot of unknown details in the Vow
Yeah,
world.
there are lots of problems with the space. For example, when you look at an exchange, the first question that you might ask is, well, what's the volume on the exchange, right? Because you might have 1 million users that never trade. And so you're not going to see any support for your token from those users. So what you ask is not the number of users, but the volume. But the problem is that you might have 1 million users that don't actually trade and two bots that do a tremendous amount of trading basically between each other at zero cost and produce all of this incredible amount of volume. And typically those numbers are not very well audited. You kind of have to trust the exchange, which is not really a trustworthy sort of source for that information. And so you don't really know what you're getting, in other words. There's the whole, they call it wash trading, right? Where you buy an asset from one place to the other and then you sell it back. And so in a lot of environments, the fees that exchanges would ordinarily trade customers for doing real trades disappear in those wash trades, so that you can actually wash trade, and that benefits the exchange. So it's from my perspective, it's an immoral practice. It's there just to paint a picture to mislead people about what your real business is. Um, so yeah, I don't have a high regard of the whole space.
In the last call, Bish talked about the influence of bots, but can you tell us a bit more about the influence of bots if Vow would appear and the bots
Yeah,
recognize
so
that?
some of the problems, so this extends beyond the centralized exchanges and goes really towards even liquidity pools or decentralized exchanges, etc. Bots, they can act faster than you can as a human being. So one of the ways in which they make money at your expense is, let's say that you are going to buy some Vow and you're going to buy it with some USDC or with some Ethereum or something. So what you do is you have to send the Ethereum to the exchange before you can buy the Vow. And they, depending on the destination, like if you're sending the Ethereum to a liquidity pool that's going to get you some Vow, then the bots will know exactly what the intention of that Ethereum is, of the Ether, right? And so what they'll do is they see your transaction come onto the mempool and they put their own transactions ahead of yours. They pay a higher fee so that their transactions are processed more quickly, and therefore they buy the Vow before you do, so that by the time that you actually get to buy the Vow, the price is higher because it's a liquidity pool and it works on an asymptote, right? And this works the same way for DEXs. It's not as precise because there's an order book instead, but whatever, and therefore centralized exchanges as well. And so now that you're in the position and you overpaid, now they dump because they just made a profit, right? So these kinds of things are they're unfortunate of the space, but they're not particular to crypto, right? They have existed always. As long as we have financial markets, there's always the issue of backdoor deals and special incentives and special relationships and speed of transactions. I mean, I'm aware of a number of projects that actually built miles and miles of fiber to arbitrage like literally milliseconds worth of trading speed with the New York Stock Exchange from Chicago, for example, right? So this is really just a the same paradigm moved over into the blockchain space, and I mean, it affects prices and it hurts the purchasing individual a little bit. But it doesn't really, when you think about buying Vow, if you're a trader and you get hurt by bots, yeah, don't be a trader. Trading is stupid, right? I mean, you want to time the market, you want to make some profits here, you've got your screens or whatever, okay. Then you're just at the mercy of the vultures, the bots, the smarter guys with bigger books or whatever, right? You lose money, you shouldn't trade. If you're buying to hold for a period of time, a year, 5 years, 10 years, then these small changes, these small effects that bots have don't really matter that much, because over the long term, an asset like Vow will produce excess and excess of return, right? So when you buy, always buy quality, right? And if you want to trade, knock yourself out. Don't cry to anyone when you lose money.
Is it important for people who want to stake money, for example, in the TLM liquidity pools, to avoid these problems with the bots when they stake? Or
you can't avoid them.
No matter how big the amount is you stake at one time, there's no difference.
No, there is a difference. So you can't avoid the bots, but what you can do is you can mitigate your loss by managing risk exposure, right? So what happens is this: if you have a liquidity pool of a certain size, your transaction is going to create a certain price impact, right? So if your trade is 10% of the total liquidity in the pool, it's going to have a big price impact. If your transaction is 2% or half of 1% of the total liquidity in the pool, it's going to have a very small price impact. The bigger the price impact, obviously, the more the bots can get a leg up on you. So if you've got 10% of the liquidity in the pool that you want to trade, don't trade it all at once. Do 10 trades or do 20 trades, right? Mm-hmm. That way, it kind of evens itself out, and the bots have only little bits to bite at.
Okay.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that was great. I think I heard these questions often, and I'm very glad that we talked about that. And yeah, let's stop for the moment, and let's start soon with next questions.